Now we'll finish our diving into the lessons, experiencing them as learners, and thinking through what it would look like in our classrooms. We finished sessions 1 and 2, and now we're going to do 3 and 4. You'll still need your text set ready and available, and you'll need your notebook. I'll pull up the slides, and we'll begin where we left off earlier. So it's time now that we have our word balloons filled out. It's time now for us to pull up our chair at the table. So everyone draw yourself a chair and a word balloon, put your name here, and then put your claim and some evidence for your claim. The evidence can come from, a large part of it should come from your sources. You're writing a source-based argument. It's every once in a while a student will put in some personal evidence, a personal anecdote, and that's okay too. That can be used as some evidence, but the majority of the evidence we want that to come from our sources. And so your name, your claim, and then evidence. The evidence is typically it's why you arrived at that claim. So during your research and reading, what is it that led you to make that claim? So here are some sample claims. People who own drones should be careful about how they use them. I could back that up. I could find evidence from the text and back up that claim and forward my argument with that evidence. Here's another one. Civilians should not be allowed to use drones because they can be harmful and can invade others' privacy. I could definitely find lots of evidence for both parts of that claim, harmful and invade others' privacy. There was plenty in the text sets that I could use to support that claim. Civilians should be allowed to use drones, but the government should regulate their use. There was plenty there that I could find to back up that claim. There's some nuance there, some conditions. Yes, they should, but the government should regulate the use. And I could find lots of reasons why civilians should be allowed to use them. Farmers were using them to good effect and fighting mosquitoes, and that made a huge difference. So they are used to good effect, but they must be regulated because of the harmful things they do when they're not. So I could choose any of these claims or a different one. This is not an exhaustive list. And students can come up with lots and lots of different claims. They're all fine as long as it is, as the claim can be backed up with evidence from the sources. So you can stop the video now, write your name on at your chair in your word balloon, your claim and evidence for your claim. Now, if you watched the video about the Atwoodian table up in the foundational practices section, I believe it was module 2, then you understand the importance of moving your chair around at the table and talking to the sources and how that really prepares you for making the argument. And so based on your claim, you're talking to them through the lens of your own claim. You're forwarding your claim. You're going to pull up a chair by at least one person who has some points of agreement with you, and at least one person, source, who has some points of disagreement with you. And as you talk to them, you're going to use these sentence stems. So when I pulled up my chair beside Robert Blair, I might say, yes, and his claim was about the save the farmers lots of money. So let's go and see what Robert Blair said. And I'm modeling for you just as you would model for your students. So I'll open the text set. I'll find Robert Blair. Robert Blair said drones can help farmers be more environmentally friendly. We can be more precise when we apply fertilizer, water, or pesticides. For more than 4 years, he has used unmanned aircraft. That's a drone. Nobody's flying the thing. It's probably remote control. He uses it to get a bird's eye view of his cows and fields of wheat. We can collect information and make better decisions. We're just scratching the surface of what it could do for farmers. So this makes me wonder if maybe Blair, using this new technology, it makes me wonder, especially this unmanned, that makes me wonder if like how many jobs this has done away with. So like, for example, maybe there was a time when he hired a person or two to do this. I mean, if it's 1,500 acres, he might have had to hire several people to monitor this acreage. Now with the drone, perhaps people lost jobs. So in my, when I pull up beside Robert Blair, I might say, yes, let's say that my claim is that civilians should be able to use drones. So I would say, I agree with your stance that civilians can use drones to good effect or for beneficial purposes. On the other hand, so this is like yes, but thinking. So you have yes and, yes, but, and no, because. So yes, our major claim we agree with. On the other hand, more research should be, more studies, more data should be collected on how many jobs have been lost as a result of unmanned aircraft monitoring farms. I might disagree with Dianne Feinstein, let's say. She wanted very stringent regulations. I'd say I disagree, so that would be a no because. No, I disagree with, and I would quote what she said here, because then the government would have to hire lots of people to enforce the regulations. I'm just modeling aloud for students, and students will begin to think and generate their own. And so a word about sentence frames, if you watched the video about that up above in a prior module, sentence frames generate thinking. It helps me make my argument more sophisticated. So these stems, there are 3 types of thinking implied. Yes, and I agree with this, and here's another reason for what you and I agree on. Yes, you and I agree on this part, but here's where I think your use of drones might be harmful. So while on the whole, we both agree about civilian use. And then if I disagree, I'm going to, of course, do that respectfully. And I might even say, I can see this point, however, I agree with it because, and then I would give my reasons. And so here's an example. The USDA Forest Service, we all know what they said. And so here's something I would say to the USDA Forest Service when I pull my chair up beside them. I agree that people should not fly their drones near a fire because it could put people in danger. However, this doesn't mean that people should not be able to own drones at all. Okay. So that type of thinking is yes, but. However, kind of signals that it's a but. Like maybe your stance has some limitations. And so now I'm going to give you a chance. So stop, pause the video, and play around. Pull up your chair beside at least 2 people, remember. And depending on the age group of students you teach, so we have 6 people at the table, I would probably ask students to talk to at least 3 or 4 people at the table. And as they're talking at the table, jot some things you would say to them on your Atwoodian table. Like when you pull your chair out beside each person, you can put in your word balloon what you would say to that person. So pause the video for that. And now that you've talked to everyone at the table, revisit your thinking tracker in your notebook one more time. If there's anything you want to add it, because the next step is to write a quick draft of the argument. So in our foundational practices module, you learned about kernel essays. Here's a kernel essay that's very helpful when you're helping students arrive at a claim. And that's what we just did. That's what the Atwoodian table helps you do. It helps you arrive at a claim that is somewhat nuanced, and it also gives you a good first step for your writing when you're talking to those sources using the sentence frames for yes and, yes but, and no because. And so we have students write just a quick draft of an essay at the end of this resource. First I thought, then I learned, now I think. And here's an example of how students would outline that. First I thought drones are fun toys for people to own and that they don't bother anyone. Then you use your sources to say what you learned. So write all about the things you learned. Now I think people should be able to own drones, but the government should regulate when, where, and how people can use them. Now, a lot of times teachers will say, is that it? Well, the kernel essay, remember, that's sections. And so many teachers, and I would be one of those, after students get this part down, then you use all of the thinking here to write a more fleshed out essay. Or you can move on from this lesson sequence, and then students can come back as they learn more about writing arguments and flesh out this essay. But remember, the purpose of this lesson sequence is to help them understand how they arrive at a claim. And that's what this kernel essay does. It helps them generate a nuanced, sophisticated claim. I thought this, and remember we did all of this in the thinking tracker. First I thought this. What do you think right now about drones? Do some learning as you learn. Add to your thinking tracker. Now what do you think? Remember, thinking and learning should change your thoughts. It should make them more sophisticated, more complex. And so what we've done here is arrive at a claim. So at this point, you can, as I said, you can stop it there just with the quick draft using this kernel. You can have them do a quick draft using this kernel and then have them flesh it out with one of the more sophisticated kernels. And then whichever one you choose, you should have students share. You always want to celebrate the writing and the thinking. And so there should be a way to share. You could have them post it on a Google site where everybody can see each other's and give comments and feedback. You could put them in the classroom somewhere, put them in the hallway, but always celebrate your students' writing. We also have a place here in this module for you to upload some sample student writing for us all to celebrate together.